The gap between fame and fortune in music is wider than most people realize. You can be performing on massive stages one night and sleeping on a stranger's couch the next.
That reminds me of this fascinating story about a DJ who opened for the Crystal Method in Puerto Rico. On paper, it looked like his big break, but the reality was something entirely different.
You know what's wild about that? Here's this guy hauling thousands of dollars worth of professional equipment across the island for a promised payment of just $100, which he didn't even end up getting.
And the contrast between him and the Crystal Method really tells the whole story. They had ironclad contracts and riders while he was basically working on a handshake deal.
The backstage scene really captures that divide. You've got the Crystal Method in their protected space, while our DJ is mixing it up with this incredible cast of characters. Future MTV Latino stars, promotional models, radio contest winners, who bought their way in through some pretty sketchy connections.
Speaking of sketchy, there was this cocaine dealer who couldn't wrap his head around the fact that someone he'd seen on major TV shows couldn't afford to buy drugs.
That's such a perfect illustration of how the music industry operates on smoke and mirrors. Here's someone who's been on television playing major venues in a band that sold 10,000 CDs and hadn't seen a single penny from those sales.
And then they spring this surprise after-party gig on him, right? Like the original deal wasn't bad enough.
Exactly. And that's where things really went sideways. He and his roadie ended up stranded, waiting all night for a promoter who never showed up with their money. But you know what's really interesting? That led to probably the most revealing part of the story.
You mean the strip club DJ? That was such an unexpected twist.
Right? Here's this guy who technically had a much less prestigious gig, but he had everything our protagonist was missing. Steady work, reliable pay, professional respect. It's like a perfect metaphor for the difference between fame and actual success in the industry.
The whole story really captures this moment when electronic music was changing. You had these established acts operating at the highest level, while so many talented artists were still basically working in the Wild West.
And that's what makes these early career war stories so fascinating. They're these perfect snapshots of an industry in transition. You're literally watching the gap between the old way of doing things and the new professional standard.
Though I imagine those experiences feel a lot more romantic in hindsight than they did at the time.
No doubt about that. But you know what's interesting? The Crystal Method probably never got to experience any of that chaos. The impromptu strip club tours, crashing on fans' couches, making those random connections that sometimes turn into something bigger.
So in a way, the story isn't just about one bad gig. It's about that moment when you realize just how far you have to go, even when you're seemingly so close to making it.
And that's really the heart of it. Success in music isn't just about sharing a stage with your heroes. It's about building the infrastructure that turns those opportunities into something sustainable. Otherwise, you're just collecting stories about the time you almost made it.
Though this particular story turned out to be pretty valuable in its own right.
And that's the irony, isn't it? Sometimes the gigs that go wrong end up being more valuable than the ones that go right. They become the stories that shape your perspective and guide your future decisions. Even if you'd still rather have gotten paid.